Right, we're going 3, 2, 1. Lions TV, Lions Lounge Lockdown, episode 3. I'm knocking them down like Skittles at the minute, mate. Richard Sadlier. How are you,
How are
mate?
you doing? How are you doing?
Good,
You
mate.
well?
Thanks so much for giving us your time. Let's get on to your Millwall career, obviously. A one-club man. 1996 to 2004.
Yeah.
How did that come about? Obviously, a boy from Ireland going to Millwall. How did that come about? You getting to the Den?
So I was playing for a schoolboy club called Belvedere, and I think the under 14 manager of Belvedere also happened to be Millwall's Republic of Ireland based scout. And he knocked on the house one night, came into the sitting room and said, "Listen, we'd invite you over on a trial." So this was kind of early February '95, that kind of time. So I went on my first trial within a month, around Easter time, whenever that was, and it was absolutely shocking.
It was.
I was like beyond shocking. And like there are some scouts who'll tell you, I could see. I could see what others couldn't, and blah blah blah. But I showed nothing. Honestly, there was nothing whatsoever. So I think the reason that they asked me back was they must have realised that I completely froze, or the pressure got to me. Yeah. So I was asked back, and they actually offered me a 2-year deal in the summer of '95, but I had a year left in my school, and my managers at the time, like the amount of kids who leave this country to go to the UK hoping to be the next big thing, tiny percentage of them even make a career, let alone do anything decent. So I thought better off finishing school. So I did that, and then went over the following summer, August '96, on a 1-year non-contract. So it wasn't quite YTS, but it wasn't professional status. It was called non-contract for some reason. So that's what it was.
So when you first went over, was you in digs? How would that? You'd been 15, 14?
I was actually, by the time I went over the second time, when I went on trial first, I was 16, and I was in digs, and I hit the jackpot digs wise. I really liked it, and that was the house that I stayed in when I moved over. Reason being, it was on the corner of Calmont Road, where the training ground is. Calmont Road meets Ashgrove Road. There's a house there on the corner. So that's where I moved into. It was just with a couple. They were about 40 or 45 or something. They had no kids. They just had a dog. So I was in there with Phil Smith, the U-team goalkeeper. So didn't have to drive, put that off for years. No traffic, nothing. Just rolled out of bed, straight into training every morning. It was brilliant.
That's what I was going to ask you as well. What other players came through? Because you're obviously a year older than me, which makes you slightly older than Reedy and Ice. What sort of players come through the same time as you?
So Danny Ogden.
Yes.
Me and Danny were we played up front in the U team together. Dean Cannaville would have been our age as well. Dean had a lot of injuries, so that kind of set him back as well. Phil Smith was the goalkeeper. He had a good few first team appearances as well. But it was the younger. I think Eiffel and Joe Dolan were a year younger, or maybe 2 years younger than us. Timmy was a year younger than me, I think. Reedy was a year younger than that as well. So we had this weird spell where over about the spell of 3 or 4 years, about 7 of us came through the academy at the one time. But I actually didn't think we were. You're kind of told fairly early on that we squad photo of 18 lads. That probably 4 will get a contract. And of those 4 that get a contract, maybe 2 of you will get a second contract. But the odds are against you. So you're told all this to begin with. So I actually didn't think I was going to be one of the ones, because Danny Ogden got in the first team before I did. So I was like, well, they clearly rate him, and how many people in the same position at the same age are they going to sign? And Dean Cannaville was brilliant as well. The only thing that held him back was he kept getting injured. So I very nearly jacked it in when I moved over to London in August '96, and then in the last week of January, I actually rang home and said, "Fuck it, I'm done." It wasn't so much that I didn't like the club. I did. I just thought there's no point in me being here.
Couldn't see you working your way in.
Yeah, happy to make all the sacrifices, being away from home, being away from my mates. It's a shit social life. You just train, you go home, because I didn't know anyone. And any of the lads my age who were from London, they had friends and family that they went back to after training. You're not really doing much. So I'd happily do this forever if I knew it was going to be for something, but I convinced myself that I wasn't going to make it. So I rang my family on a Tuesday night and said, I think I was in tears and everything. I was like, I'm done. This is like waste of time. Don't know why I thought I'd be any good anyway. I'm done. I was speaking to my mum actually on the phone, and she was like, she just talked me down and just said, just don't book the flight tonight. It was a Tuesday night, so just go to bed, see how you feel in the morning, sleep on it. And so I did, slept on it, felt better in the morning, and it was a Wednesday, I think, we had a day off. Went into training on the Thursday, and then I was told that I'm going to be training with the first team on the Friday. I have a good chance of making my debut on the Saturday.
Just out of nowhere.
Out of nowhere. I was like, fucking, this is amazing. There's no news you could have given me that would have made me more happy than the news I just got. So I trained on the Friday with the first team, and then Jimmy Nicholl was the manager.
Right.
And he called me into his office afterwards, and he gave me a bit of a pep talk. And he started just praising me for a load of things. He said, we've been keeping an eye on you in training, and I didn't think they were watching me at all. And he says, you've kept your nose clean as well, because I was hanging around with a couple of lads who kept getting caught for all the things they did wrong. So they just assumed I was going to go that way as well.
Yeah.
And he said, I can't promise, because obviously we don't know how the game is going to go, but you have a good chance you're going to make your debut tomorrow. Brilliant. So actually, I'd met a girl over Christmas in Dublin, and her and her mate was seeing some player from Tottenham, and the two of them came over on the Friday. So I thought, you're not normally meant to go out on a Friday night of a Saturday game, but I didn't know that I was playing on a Saturday, and she'd come over, so I better go up. So I went up to London.
So she had already been arranged for her to come over.
Flight had booked, exactly. So the flight had been booked, so I was to meet her 7 or 8 o'clock up in her to get her booked into where she was staying. And her flight was delayed, and I thought, fuck, I better go. And I was like, I can't, she's come over to see me, so I've got to go up to this hotel.
Of course. Anyway,
by the time she came, checked her in, said hello, said goodbye. I'm on a train in Victoria Station at about 11:15. This is not where I'm meant to be the night before my debut. Anyway, so the whistle goes, and the train's about to leave. Whistle goes, he's on the whatever, all in, whatever. And then 2 blokes bundle their way into the train, carrying bags, sweaty, all out of breath. It was Jerry the physio and Jimmy fucking Nicholl.
Right? Oh my God. What are the chances?
I'm sitting there, and they were coming, so the door was to the left in front of me, so they're coming this way towards me on the train, and I'm sitting here, and there's nowhere else to hide. Like, all the seats are taken, so I can't dive on the floor or anything. I was like, I'm going to get caught. And Jerry walks first, doesn't see me, walks past. I was like, I could get away with this. And then Jimmy walks along, and he sees me, and he just looks down. Didn't smile, said no, he just says, "You're in the doghouse, son."
Oh.
Shook his head, the most serious expression, and walked on. So I'm sitting there in the train going, okay, you've blown it now. Every bit of the speech that he gave you that afternoon, you've just undone it all.
You've gone from there to there, and now.
Exactly. This is. So I slept really well that night. No nerves about the debut, because I thought, well, I'm not going to make my debut because there's no coming back from this.
Not going to play me now.
So I went into the dressing room, told the lads, and most of them are much older than me. It wasn't a young squad then. I think bar Lucas, Neil, and maybe Bert, they were all mid-20s, I think. And so everyone was laughing and slagging, and it kind of settled me down a little bit. But anyway, turns out he named me on the subs bench anyway. I was one of 3. It was back in the days when there was only 3 subs. And I played for the last 25 minutes or so, and loved it. But I found out years later, about 3 years later, that after that phone call from my mother, she rang my Belvedere manager.
Right.
He rang Bob Pearson, the chief scout. He rang Jimmy Nicholl, the manager, and said, we've got to do something for this kid to keep him here. So I basically got my debut out of sympathy. I'd somehow managed to keep my place in the subs bench on the Saturday, despite being cut out on the Friday night.
That's what I was going to say. Was that a coincidence, or do you think? I assumed something like that might have happened. I thought it may have been the people that he was in digs with. They might have said, "Look, he ain't too too keen. But yeah, your mum put the call in. Cheers, Mum.
It was all those phone calls. Because I would have been struggling with the homesickness thing.
That's what I was going. That was another thing I was going to ask you. Like, you said you didn't go out much, and you said you was living right on the corner of Calmont Road. But a young lad from Ireland. I mean, I don't know where you live in Ireland, but it's not as populated as South East London. I know that for sure. So was that difficult? Was that strange for you, or
there wasn't. I think the toughest thing to do was just get used to the training, because it was all a lot quicker and obviously more professional, and the standards were better. And all the players I was playing with and against in all the matches, they were way better than I was playing with and against in Dublin. And I mean, you have to adjust to just having no family or friends around. But the social life, there's not much you can do, because so like, this is before the internet. This is before Skype or all the million ways in which you can keep in contact with someone.
Yeah. No Instagram.
I don't even think I had a mobile phone.
No.
I remember I delayed getting a mobile phone because I thought that was just for flash fuckers. I thought it was a fad that wouldn't last. So every night.
They were expensive back in the day. About 300-400 quid when they first came out and all.
And massive, yeah.
No man had one. Yeah.
So most of my evenings would be spent from 6 o'clock onwards on the house phone, on the landline in my digs, just speaking to mates and family from home. Because a lot of the other lads my age who were in digs, they went home every weekend to spend with their family. So, and there's not a lot to do. So it was you just kind of deal with the boredom and just get on with it that way.
Yeah, you saying obviously a lot of you came through. I made the mistake. I actually thought you was the same age as I am, really, but looking through you was slightly older. And you said there was a good, hardly anyone makes it, but a good core of players that came through. Do you think that was down to sheer coincidence, good scouting, or just the way the club was being run at the time?
I think a variety of all of those things. Right. I think you can have the best coaches in the world, but if you don't have someone like Stephen Reid to work with, you're not going to produce a player like Stephen Reid or Timmy Cahill or Ives. And as well, just there was just an environment, or just the way the club was at the time. Millwall's never been a club that can spend a load of money in the transfer market, so they're always going to rely on kids if kids are anyway good. So we knew we were all at a club that if we were in any way good, we'd get a half a chance. But it was just a freak few years where the potential that a few of us had, we were in the hands of coaches that could rinse every drop of potential out of us. And the club, like when I made my debut in 1st of February 97.
Who was that against? You remember?
Home against Bristol City. And the following Saturday, I played away against Wrexham. No, I think it was Wrexham. Or Walsall. And then on the Monday, 3 days later, 22 members of staff were sacked. The club was put in administration. So Jimmy Nichols gone, Martin Harvey's gone, Ian McDonald, the youth team coach, is gone. A load of the administrative staff in the club are gone. And we were brought into a room then with the administrators, and we were told the future of the club is at risk. We want you all to take a wage cut. Every one of you are on the transfer. There was no transfer windows back then, but every single one of you are basically for sale. And any of you players that the club owes you money, a lot of them would have been due transfer fees or bonus payments or whatever. They could forget about that. So the morale was rock bottom. Like, couldn't have been worse. So everyone's worrying about their jobs. They're pissed off they're not going to get paid money. And now they're being asked to take a wage cut. And I was sitting there at 18 years of age, like not having a clue what was going on. And in any of the team meetings, it's not the 18-year-olds that do any of the talking. You just shut up. Do you know what I mean? And like 10% wage for me was £17.50. So like that's
what you was on.
I was on 175 quid plus gigs.
Yeah. And then
do you know what I mean? The 10% of that isn't worth even discussing. So it was like the older lads were making all the calls, and everyone said, we're not taking this wage cut. And then John Doherty was brought in as manager, and I don't think he was hugely popular with the squad at the time. It was a difficult job to do because he was walking into a dressing room which was in chaos.
We seemed to have a lot of players on the books at that time. And I remember, like, social media, obviously, there wasn't even a thing. And I remember he said, everyone's going to get their opportunity to play for the club again under me. And I remember he brought in Luton away. He brought Tony Dolby back in. Tony Dolby hadn't kicked a football in the first team for about 2 years. I just remember we just had loads of players in the reserves. There was no 23s then, was it? There was full professionals in the rest and the first team.
Yeah, you two like senior teams, the first team and the reserve team. So there was a load of players, and I believe the wage bill was quite high for a club of our size at that time. So it was difficult. If I had experience of knowing what first team football was like, I'd probably sit there and go, God, this is difficult compared to all the other experiences I have. But I had no other experience. So this is all I was used to. It was just like, okay, this is what there is. So the manager that gave me my debut, he'd been sacked. So Jimmy's gone at this point. And all the promises of a new contract, if I did well, that they made to me when I signed, I was like, I don't think they're allowed to even sign us anymore. They're not allowed to spend money on anything. The focus now is trying to just survive.
It must have been tough, mate, being away from home, wanting to go home, not sure of your future. It made you think, and then that happens.
It's more looking back now when I kind of lay out all the things that were on the table at the time. You think that was a bit weird. That was a bit mad, especially in your first 2 weeks of first team football.
When you're younger as well, you just roll with things. You don't really analyse it too much, do you?
Exactly. Like I know I didn't have, like if I was a senior player with a mortgage, or if I had kids in the local school, if I had been owed a load of money by the club, or if I had a transfer that was about to go through, and all these things were now going to go because of this situation, or were at risk, that would be different. But I was an 18-year-old kid who was just delighted that I got 2 half-hour appearances in the first team. And thinking, okay, this is amazing. This is going the way I wanted to go. 2 weeks ago, I was about to get the plane home and give up.
Yes, thinking as well now. I mean, we've had Ifes on, obviously, we've had Denzel, and they both joined the club at a sort of a boom time. You know, things were looking up, and you was sort of there just before that. And when you think we've done so well to get out of that administration, because if they said to you, as all youngsters, could be out of the club, you could never have progressed. Ifes, Cahill, Denzel would never come to the club. We wouldn't have had that boom time. There would have been a lot of talent let go, which is what I'm trying to get, I think, at that time. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but I think another way of looking at it as well, I think I got into the first team and stayed in the first team initially under John Doherty because of that situation, because he couldn't sign players that he wanted. There were a lot of players there that either wanted to leave or Doherty didn't rate or were injured. So I think of 6-foot strikers, there was very few, if any, other fit other than me. And the way Doherty played at the time, you need a 6-foot striker to play. So I was getting my game, I think, every week for the end of that season.
Because
of the situation. So in one way, I was kind of going, it's great that I'm playing. In another way, it wasn't great that I was playing. Nobody else in the stadium thought it was a good idea that I should be playing in the team at that time, and would openly and regularly comment on the fact that they think I shouldn't be playing. But at the time, I was sitting there going, okay, this is first team football. I'm at Millwall. I knew what the club was all about. I knew what the fans are like. Good days, they'll sing your name. Bad days, they'll hammer you. And this was just a run of loads of bad days for the team. Load of bad days for the club. And it was just a real shitty atmosphere. It was just like, so we'll talk in a minute about how good it got when Warner and Eiffel came through, or when Reedy and Timmy started to show what they could do. Dyche arrived at the club. Nethers came in. Mark McGee came. There was the glory days, but the spell under Jimmy Nicholl didn't go well. John Doherty was fairly bleak.
In 8 years at the club, you've seen a few managers there.
It was
what was he like, Nicholl?
As a fella.
Oh,
he was really sound. And I think all the senior, so I was 17 when I arrived, so I wasn't going on any squad nights out. I wasn't going in the pub with anyone. And I wasn't in any of the, you sit around in the canteen laughing and joking, getting to know each other. I was sitting with the youth team. So, but the things they used to look at and hear, like some of the players would be saying, like Jimmy used to go out and piss with all the lads, and it was brilliant, and the lads would be like smoking in front of him, and like there was no discipline at all. Training seemed to consist of just crossing and shooting exercises and 5-a-sides. So there was no real boring tactical structured stuff, but that stuff that you need.
Do you think he was doing that just to try and get in with the boys and have a jolly?
I think that was just his style.
I've heard from other people that can work. If you just get people on board with your character and stuff, it can work. People want to run through brick walls for you, and it can happen.
Yeah, I think, and I only know this from being able to compare that dressing room with the one under Mark McGee. You can have you can throw in whatever approach you want with the group of players that Mark McGee had, and they're going to try everything. They're going to do everything to try and make your plans work. But I think like Jimmy, the squad he had, the squad John Doherty inherited, and the situation he inherited, and even Billy Bonds, the squad he had for the year, they're a very different group of players, very different culture than the one that we all created together as a group when McGee, Ray Harford, and Steve Gritt took over.
Yeah, because that was a good core of young players, but there was a lot of, under Jimmy Nicholl, there was a lot of we had the Scottish Free straight away, didn't you, that he brought with him from Rafe.
Yeah.
David Sinclair, Jason Dare was horrendous, wasn't he? But the other two were right. Hartley and Crawford, I thought they weren't bad players. If Jimmy Nicholl gives you your debut, you're happy with that. Then he goes, you think, oh, what's going on here? And then Doherty comes in only as temporary. What was he like, the Doc? It would have been the second time coming at the club.
To me back then, he just seemed like a very old man.
Yeah, I thought.
Now, I don't know what age he actually was. He was probably only in his 50s, maybe his 60s. I don't know, but he just seemed to be, like how he described me, a bit old school and a bit out of touch. He had a very specific way of playing. It was very kind of one-dimensional, just very and also he was dealing with a group of players who, like, ideally you want to have all players who are focused on nothing else but training and matches. But the squad that he was working with were all constantly on the phone, probably to their agents, constantly in contact with the administrators who were running the club. They were trying to chase up whatever money they were owed. So it was the worst conditions and all to try and come in and be a success. And I don't even think he saw it at the end of the season. I think with a game to go, I think he left. I maybe got that wrong, but I didn't particularly take to him. I don't remember anything he said or anything he did where, all the dressing room responded and got, we're in really good hands. It wasn't. I think there was just the dressing room at the time was a room full of people who just were all probably looking after themselves as much as anything, for good reason, because everyone's position at the club, even the club itself, was up in the air. She had a stroke of luck when Billy Bonds got the job, because he had previously been the QPR youth team manager. Right. And when we played QPR, we beat them 3-2 and I got a hat-trick. So I was like, oh, fuck, this is brilliant. The one, this is the only hat-trick I got at the youth team. So it's like the one manager who saw it is now the first team manager. So this is brilliant. And I think I started the first game of his season and scored the first goal that I ever scored for the club.
Who was that against?
Brentford. We won 3-0 on the opening day of the season. But I had, I'll tell you, I had an issue at the time. He was kind of praised me and said, you're going to be in the team. And I was doing well. I think I scored like 3 goals in the first 5 games or something that I played in. But there was a gap. If you look at my appearances, there's a gap of about 2 weeks in the first month or 6 weeks. I had to get circumcised.
Right.
Fucking 18 years of age, right? What happened was I won't tell you exactly what happened. Anyway, I needed to be circumcised, right? So there's something that happened the previous Easter, right? In a bedroom. Fuck.
Oh, okay.
The club doctor, when I came back from Dublin for the weekend, she goes, "Okay, this should all heal up, but worst case scenario, I don't know what the medical term is, right?" But the doctor, I remember at the time, says to me, she said, "Well, I should clear up, but worst case, circumcision is an option." And anyway, I put that out of my head. And anyway, it didn't. What I wanted, the healing that I wanted to happen, didn't happen. So I needed the surgery, but in order to get, usually when you need surgery in a club, you just go and get it, because until you get it, you can't play again. But this was surgery that I could have done without from a football point of view. But in my personal life, it meant everything else was on hold. So I had to go.
Score more goals, mate. Just score more goals. Don't worry about that side of things.
No. So so the medical staff were on board saying, yeah, this is surgery that you require. But the problem is you're going to need Billy Bonds' permission to get time off. And I was like, so does that mean I have to ask Billy Bonds? And Jerry, the physio, like, that's what you're going to have to do. So 18-year-old me goes up to the office. Maybe I was 19 at this point. And
young enough to be full of beans still.
I was like, I was probably gone bright red. I was like looking at the floor, scratching my head, going, "Oh, boss, just have this this issue and I need surgery, but it'll mean 2 weeks off. And he's like, what's the problem? Like, can you not run? Is it hurt when you run? I said, no, I run fine. He said, is it when you kick a ball? Like, is that the problem? I said, no. I said, what is it like tackling? Is it when you run? Is that the problem? He was kept talking about it in terms of it being a football problem, which of course it wasn't. And I said, no, on the pitch I'm grand. I said, it's just I'm fumbling my words. It's just with birds and that. Like, I just can't do anything, right? I can't do anything.
I can't score in the bedroom, basically, Bonzi.
And then the penny drops with Billy Bonds, who is the most intimidating man I'd ever met at this point in my life. Like, what a formidable person to have this conversation with. And he just looks at me and went, what? Just shagging? Did you only care about it? And I just want to die at this point. And I said,
oh God.
And in fairness to him, he looked up the board, looked at the fixture list, and he said, in fairness, between now and next summer, there's no gap. So he gave me permission to do that. But 5-6 games into that season, I hurt my groin, which they thought was just a routine kind of Gilmore's groin. You have an operation and 6 weeks later you're back playing. So I had the operation and 6 weeks later it was no better. And then I was diagnosed with osteitis pubis, which is like an inflammation of the pubic bone, which was the reason I was getting all the pain down in my groin. But so I thought, great, they know what it is. But I kept asking, okay, now that we know what it is, how do you treat this? How do you get rid of it?
Was this the start of the injury problems?
Well, it wasn't actually linked in any way, but some of the symptoms were similar at the time. But I kept saying, okay, well, what do we do to get better? And they said, just rest. And I said, for how long? And they were like, I kept hearing this phrase. It's like, well, how long's a piece of string? And I was going, this is so basically. I was just
at that age, you're still growing as well. So
yeah, but I was now playing no football. So
yeah.
And it ended up being 11 months. Until I played again. So for the whole season was gone. So the whole 97-98 season was a write-off. So I played the first half dozen games under Billy Bonds, didn't play again. And by the time I came back fit, he'd been sacked and Ryan O'Macker took over. Wow. So my first, 20 games, it was under 3 different managers.
Jesus. Yeah. I remember you saying earlier about Danny Hopton. This actually came up in the IFA interview. I think you've seen it. And no disrespect to you. And when I put online earlier that I was going to be interviewing you today, some people were like, he was like Bambi on ice when he first started for us. He looked awful. And then just that. And I agreed. I saw you and Hopton come through at the same time. I thought Hopton was the better player. Just watching you on the pitch, I just thought, what is this geezer doing? And then out of nowhere,
yeah,
just unbelievable. What played a part in that trade? You know?
I remember at the time when I was first in the team, I was physically nowhere near ready. You could have blown me over. Like, no strength, nothing at all. Like, no experience, no cleverness, no intelligence. All the stuff that you pick up from playing games, none of that. Wasn't in a particularly good team. We weren't winning. So ideally, if you're a young player, you want to go into a settled team that's doing well. That wasn't the case. But I had absolutely no confidence in myself at all. Right. And it would be quite soft at the time in that if I went out and you told me I was great, I'd believe you. And if I went out and you were singing that I was shit, I'd believe that too. Yeah. So that's not the right attitude to have if you want to do well at a stadium like Millwall during a run of games where the team is playing badly, they want the manager sacked, and you're losing most games. So every time I drove up to the Den, I'd be driving to the Den on match days. Some days, fucking dreading it. Because I know I'm going to play. I know I'm in the first team. And I know probably most of the first team don't think I'm good enough to play. The manager probably is his pain in his arse picking me every week, but he's got no other option because there's no other players who are 6 foot. And all the fans are hammering me every time I take to the pitch. Like, this is nothing like I thought being a footballer was going to be. Yeah. But this is what being a footballer is. So I either walk away, which I don't want to do, or else you just suck it up. And then I think what happened, a few things happened. Physically got a bit stronger over the couple of years. Mentally got a bit tougher. Felt the homesickness stuff was all gone. I started to feel a little bit more at home. And then I started to respond a good bit better working under Ryan O'Macker. And better players started to arrive at the club. Younger players, other than me, were doing a lot better than I was. So it started to become a different kind of a dressing room. And them and Mark McGee came in. A load of things changed.
Next level, yeah. That's the when you think people think, oh, it's easy being a footballer. Maybe a club struggling will go out, a big club struggling will go out and buy a centre forward. Oh, we bought this guy for X amount. Now he's going to score all these goals, and you're giving a brilliant insight to it's fucking real life, mate. It's real life. People don't realise that. They think he's a footballer in life for Riley having a jolly up. They don't understand. Like, that's terrible to hear the way you said, going up to the den.
Because do you know
do you know what I mean? It's real life.
And at the club as well, it's not there might be some clubs where the car park or the setup is, the players go in here and you're in a little bubble away from the supporters. But Millwall isn't like that. So where you drive into the car park and you've your car parking spot, and then you've got to walk 50 or 80 yards from your car through the car park into the main reception door, which same it is today, which is fine. But if you're playing shit and you're zero confidence, and the fans that you're playing for are Millwall fans who also think you're shit, that 80-yard walk from your car to the building, that's going to be tricky in itself as well. So it just all became just routine. I thought, well, this is what happens in match days, and then I'd play in the matches. And I remember I used to, when I'd run out on the pitch, as everyone else does, at about 25 past 2. We all go out with 25 past 2 back then. The keepers might be out 5 minutes earlier. And anyone who was in the stadium, when I'd run on the pitch, would boo me. There would always just be like boos and all this. And after a while, it just becomes embarrassing to think, and you pretend to everyone else that you either don't hear or you don't care. So then what I used to do was time my runs. I remember Lucas Neal was probably one of the most popular players, so he would get the biggest cheer when he'd run on the pitch. So I would time my run onto the pitch to be level with Lucas,
running in shadow,
in the hope that their desire to praise him would outweigh their need to boo me. So that running onto the pitch would be a little bit easier. And then just before kick-off, when the PA bloke would call out the first team, every time my name got called out, usual cheer after everyone's name, big boo after my name. And then I let all that in. Some young lads are just impenetrable. Doesn't matter what you're saying about them, they hear none of it. Just eyes on the prize, and they're great.
Everyone's different, but you can understand that can easily affect you. Do you know what I mean? Especially, it shows you care as well. Do you know what I mean? It shows you actually. Some people genuinely, like you said, you made out to the boys you didn't care. Some people actually wouldn't give a fuck as long as they're picking up their money. Do you know what I mean? But it shows you actually genuinely care.
It's like in some way. Like the pitch can seem a bit intimidating when you're on the pitch and there's whatever amount of thousand people chanting that you personally are shit, not the team, it's you personally, and they're your own fans, so it's a bit embarrassing. But there's nothing really bad can happen. It's when on nights out in Bromley or whatever, so we would all go out together as a group. So there'd be 2s or 3s or 4s or 5s. So if we went into any pub, very quickly word was spread out there to Millwall lads. And on a Saturday night, like, a lot of Millwall fans aren't the shyest of people anyway, but throw in drink and whatever else in, and they're really quick to tell you what they think of you. So you'd be fucking Saturday night after Saturday night. Again, just like I go to the stadium on match days, bracing myself for a bit of stick. On a Saturday night, I'd go out bracing myself as well for a bit of stick. Some egg is going to come up and feel the need to stand for 20 minutes and hammer me and tell me, I pay your wages and your shit and blah, blah, blah. And you just have to stand there and take it. Like, if me and you met in the street now and I'm not a footballer, you're some random bloke. If you start hitting me, I can hit you back, or I can do what I want. It's a level playing field. When you're a footballer and a fan starts having a go at you, if you have a go back or anything happens, like, you're done. You'll be fine. You're getting hammered. It's different. You just have to suck it up. So it just became, those are the things that you became used to doing.
Was you fully established by this point? Is this when the injury started to creep in? I saw you played about 20 games that season.
Yeah, I was I remember at that season, there was Moody, myself, Chopper, probably Paul Shaw was probably still there. And it was usually either me and Moody with either Shawsy or Chopper. Sometimes Chopper and Shawsy would play together, but me and Moody probably never played together. So, and the way Chopper was playing, he very, very quickly made it like he was going to be. It was going to be. It was M+1. Yeah. So but we were doing well. He was scoring all the time, so I wasn't doing enough in training that I could be knocking down the door saying, "Listen, I need to play more." So, I had the odd brief little injury. I think I more or less had a decent run injury wise. But at the end of that season, or the start of the following season, I was all enthusiastic at the start of pre-season, as I am every year. I'm gonna train longer. I'm gonna eat better. I'm gonna drink less. I'm gonna sleep more. I'm gonna be a better professional. Probably everyone says it at the start of pre-season, and by a month you're back to doing what you used to do. 2 weeks into pre-season, it was a Friday, and I remember I stayed back to do an extra shooting session, and I broke my arm. Smashed my arm, like the two bones here, like a break here. So I was told, right, you're out for 12 weeks. And by the time I came back from that injury, Rhino Macker had been sacked.
Right.
Because I was one of, I think Eiffel got injured probably, I think on the same day in pre-season, and Lucas. It was one of those freak mornings where it just cleared out a few of us. So we started that season with an understrength team that didn't start well. So results weren't great. And at the time, actually, I thought Theo had gotten it all wrong by getting rid of Rhino Mack. I remember I was because I was injured. I think I was in Dublin the weekend that they were sacked. So I wasn't at. I think it was Brentford away was their last game.
Yeah,
and there was just this story that went round that Rhino had been spat on, or someone had. Have you heard this?
Yeah.
Right, now I don't know if that was true or if it was one idiot or it was a load of people, but I remember sitting there going, a Millwall fan is spatting Rhino. Like Rhino. That's not like a shitty 17-year-old like me who's just come from nowhere. Yeah. It's Rhino. And how the fans have done that to him. Theo has just sacked him. And I remember Macker came in the following day. As with it, when every managerial change, there's either a meeting with the manager who's just leaving, or there's a meeting. There was a meeting with the manager who's just arrived.
Yeah,
we were all brought together in the canteen. Bob Pearson started going through various different things, and Macker came in to say, I think his intention was to say, "Thanks, good luck, well done, blah blah blah." But he was really, really emotional. He couldn't speak properly. He was full of tears. He'd been crying, or he started crying, or was about to cry, or something.
Jesus.
And I remember sitting next to Joe Dolan, and it was one of those few days where you go, like, fucking hell, football is harsh. Like, this isn't a game. Like what you said a moment ago, you think of footballers and it's brilliant and it's fun and you're doing what you love, and it is all of those. Yeah. There are times where you sit there and go, this is harsh.
Doing what I do, I used to be the other side. I used to think, they got a great life, 10 grand a week, girls, fucking cars. Through doing what I do, I've been to a lot of training grounds. I've been around it, and I've seen the other side of it. The way you're treated, the way, especially these days, you've got to eat this. They train like grounds, but especially like the other side, the abuse.
I remember at the time thinking, like, this is a really, really tough world we're in. Like, I knew that anyway from my earlier time in the first team and just being in the stadium and all the rest of it. But I remember thinking it was just like a turning point. Like, what Rhino's been spat on. Millwall fans think spitting on someone like Rhino was something that's okay. I remember thinking, they're fucking idiots, like absolute fucking idiots. So I remember thinking at the time Theo had made a big mistake. I was looking around at the room and going, like, we weren't all cheering at Rhino Macker's gone. It was the opposite. And then McGee walks in and so I was still injured when McGee came in first, like with my broken arm. And I injured players at the time. We went swimming each day. If you couldn't run, you swam. So I was swimming, and McGee probably. Well, the arm was probably. I was probably at the bit where I wasn't.
Right.
There was no wound or anything, so it was in the last bit of fitness building stage. McGee must have thought I was a fucking idiot, because as I was driving out, it was Birch in the car with me and Mark Hicks was in the back. We were 3 injured lads driving to swimming, and I didn't even make it out of the car park, but I crashed. A driver was coming up Calmont Road, and there was a massive big reserve team bus parked there, so I couldn't see either side. So I was driving out. I just said to the bus drivers, "Am I all right to come out?" Dickhead sitting there with the full road in front of me, full view, just goes, yeah. So I drive out, and then a car from nowhere just smacks Birch's side of the car, pushes us all up against the reserve coach.
Oh my God! And what, McGee's just walked in the building at this point?
Yeah, and he's thinking like this fella, he didn't navigate his way out of the car park without crashing. So yeah, anyway, it was probably the first impression I had of him. But he was brilliant. Like within a very short period of time, he brought me into the office, and I remember the phrase he used. It was something like, "We're going to get like scientific on you." He said, "You've been a tall, skinny lad with potential for too long." There was a fitness coach in the room. So he said, "You're going to have a fitness regime, which is free." So I think me, Joe Dolan, and I think Leon Court or something. The idea of someone doing a weights program or anything, like a strength program with any thought behind it, at the time just didn't exist. The weights were used by injured lads just to occupy their time, or they'd be quite popular at the end of the season because lads want to get ripped to go on the beach. Like that was the level of professionalism back then. But the fitness coach comes in, and so we'd like 2 or 3 days a week of weight training, and which I needed. Like I absolutely needed to toughen up. And I was sent to a nutritionist, and they said, "We need you." So I had to give them a sample of hair. I want to get a big load of hair, and I usually you give them like your pubes, or you take a bit off the back. Dickhead here took a big chunk. So there's a couple of photos of me, and it just looks like I'm playing matches, and there's like a load of chalk or something there. It's basically my head because I decided to clear. Anyway, but to send the hair to get analysed for the quality of my diet or some shit. I didn't explain it. I didn't understand it. So, and I had to weigh everything I ate and drank for a week and give it to the nutritionist. So I had a weight program with the fitness coach, and I had a strict nutritional diet that I had to stick to. So that was all the physical and dietary stuff. And then on top of that, McGee just had a way of working. He was brilliant with me. I've heard Eiffel, what he said about him as well. But even before I got back fit, he would a couple of times, so I had the broken arm, and he said to me, "I hear you're one of these lads who takes ages to get back fit, take ages with injury." And that wasn't true at the time. And I don't think he believed it was true. I think he was just doing a bit of reverse psychology, and it worked. Because little me was like, "Okay, I'm going to show him. I'm going to get back really quick. I'm going to show him." So I got back really back on time, and I was so eager to impress him from the start. He just had this, I don't know, because maybe what he did in his career or the way he carried himself or whatever. I just thought it had been very hard.
Just had a bit about him. You just wanted to do your best for him.
Yeah, I just like the opposite of, say, how I remember John Doherty.
Yeah.
I remember just going, I want this fella to leave training today going, "Hell, Dad's is decent."
He sounds like he's got in your head, but in a good way. Do you know what I mean? He's got you thinking about it.
Straight away. And he would keep me back for various different centre forward specific training drills. Sometimes often it was me on my own, sometimes with other lads as well. It was just little practical, like anyone in the world, any manager in the world can give you a rousing, "Come on, we're Millwall, let's do it, work hard." That's just generic.
Yeah.
You don't ever have to have kicked the ball, and you can come up with a speech like that. That's brilliant. But what McGee had was specific things, like specific technical things he would tell me. Do this in matches. You tend to do this. Maybe do this. And I just lapped it up. And then it was like after a year, he gave me the number 10 jersey. I think
I said you went a bit from being sort of a young, skinny, like you said, Irish lad that a few people wasn't sure of, to you was our main man. Big clubs are watching. We'll get onto that shortly, because when we went up, you got even better. You was even better the year we went up. Our first year back in the champ. But let's move back and keep it on with McGee. Brilliant manager, brilliant togetherness. We've heard a lot about changing room stories, and I've heard a lot about Casa del Sadlier.
I was wondering where you started.
I don't want to hear more.
So I moved out of my digs when I was about 19, and I rented a house on my own. A really kind of shitty house. The doors didn't all close and the windows didn't all open, but it was the first house I ever lived in where there was no adults. It was brilliant. So I rented it for about 6 months, and then I bought a house on London Road, just opposite the graveyard, just around the corner from the training ground. It was like a townhouse. The sitting room was on the middle floor, it was 4 bedrooms or something. But it very, very quickly became everyone's second home. So if lads wanted to go to sleep in the afternoon between training and an evening match and they didn't want to go home, of course you can come around to my house. Saturday nights, every single Saturday night, the after party or after session of wherever we were was back in my house. And there was always, I just wanted to fill it with as many Irish people as possible. So every friend I've ever had at some point came over to either stay with weekends, or there was 2 or 3 lads from Dublin living with me for a while, like family members living with me for a while. People I didn't know
living with you for a while.
friends. If I got a call one Christmas period. So we don't really go out at Christmas because you have like 3 games in 8 days or something. And a mate of mine rang me and said, "Listen, a mate of mine is coming back from Australia and he's in 3 nights in London. He's nowhere to stay. Do you mind if he stays?" He said, "Of course he can." Like, and we'd have parties like on the Saturday night. Just think how naive and how different this world is, like compared to what lads are now. I was upstairs in the sitting room and someone said to me, he said, "So there's a couple of lads down there rolling joints and stuff. I don't know who they are." So I went down and true enough, they were rolling away. And I said, "All right, lads, how you getting on? Did you come in with anyone?" Because no one knew them. He said, No. We just saw the lights on and heard the music and the door was open. And because it was along the main road, so anyone coming from pubs walking out of Bromley would.
So there was
just random lads. And I was like, "All right." And I just went, "I'm sad. This is my gaff. The beers, like the fridge is full of beers. Help yourself there. We're all upstairs. Join us." And then off I went. And then that was just typical. Like I gave 100 examples like that. It was so.
Imagine that now with camera phones and social media gone.
Exactly.
Thanks for coming. Finished.
It was so relaxed, so naive, and it was so much fun as well. It was brilliant. Honestly, it was brilliant. It was because I like anyone who wanted to stay. Like I wasn't in any way precious about anything that was in the house. I just wanted people to be around. I wanted to be as much fun as possible.
Everyone loves it. The thing is, everyone loves those sort of houses to have, but no one ever wants it to be their own house. But you didn't mind. So that was perfect.
Because Robbie Ryan moved in as well. Robbie joined from Huddersfield when he was, I think he was about 19. I think Billy Bond signed Robbie. And about 6 months, a year after he'd been at the club, we were both obviously from Dublin. We didn't know each other beforehand. He was 2 years older than me. And we were just on the way home from some away match on the bus, and he was complaining about the digs he was staying in. And I was like, "Robbie, you can just move into my gaff if you want. Like, if you want." Like, I didn't. He says, "Yeah." I said, "Yeah, go on." Like, we didn't know each other before, and I swear to God, it was just the start of something. We became inseparable. Like we everywhere we went together. Every hotel we stayed in and away matches, we roomed together, and we went on holiday together. The girlfriends and all, we all went away together. His family became as close to me as my family was to him.
I've met his family actually. We went around his house to do some filming. His wife, his missus, and his mum was there as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Really nice people. Yeah.
It was brilliant. So that it was like just a little patch of Dublin in the middle of Bromley. So it was full of Irish people all the time. And then the fucking Saturday nights, we'd have.
I'm starting to put this down to the reason you just got better and better, because you just brought Dublin with you to Bromley.
It was the best. I just created the best of everything. It was like the best thing you could do up to lunchtime every day, which is train and play football with those lads at that time. But then after it, some of my best mates that I grew up with were living with me, and they got jobs in like call centres or whatever, and travel places in Bromley. So my mates were always there. My family were over constantly. So it was brilliant. And then on Saturday nights would be, again, stuff you would get in trouble now. Like we were playing rebel songs. Like the lyrics of rebel songs are quite naughty if you're in London back in the mid 90s or late 90s, because they're a different world then. And we'd all be singing, chanting about like Republican stuff, and none of us believed any of it around, but it was just catchy songs that you'd get in a lot of trouble if you were a footballer now singing those kind of songs. But we did like Christoph, the Belgian, and Timmy, Australian. They'd be singing all these Irish songs. This is magic. This I never want this to end.
Never ever.
Yeah.
Tony Warner, I'm sure, told me a story, not on camera, so I don't know if you'll be able to tell it. You had someone living with you, and he used to pay the geezer to do things. I can't remember who it was. It was one of your mates from back home. He come over, he's working as a barman, and he used to come around at night. Denzel used to pay him just to do mad stuff.
No, I know the fella you're talking about. He was a good mate of Mark Hicks, who played for Millwall for a few years. He had a couple of first-team appearances. He was from Belfast, and it was Hicks's mate came over. And I think the day that Warner came over to the house one day. I don't know how he had it, but he had a stun gun.
This is it. Go on, yeah.
Stun gun. And we're adults at this point. We're all in our 20s, right? So this sounds like a lot of children here, but the idea was put forward that you should do it on someone. Like, what does it feel like to be stunned? Like, you need to do it. I'm like, hey, Watsy, we're going to do it on you. And he's like, no, you're not doing it on me. Fuck, I'm not getting stunned. Like, no one knew how sore this would be, but we assumed it would be sore. So Watsy, you are doing it. And so I think we'd offer him money. And then I don't think we knew how strong the stun gun was, so we didn't know whether it would just be a little nick or whether you'd do it and he'd shoot backwards or whatever. We didn't know. So I think there's this bizarre scene at the time where we've got a mattress below him, and I think we put a mattress up against the wall, so whatever direction he shot in, he was going to be pushing. So I think he made, I don't know, 50 quid, 100 quid out of it, and we all pissed ourselves laughing. But that was kind of the way it was. Just all this just stupid carry on, it was kind of relieving the boredom, but also, like, it relieves the tension of, because sometimes being a footballer can be quite pressurized.
Yeah, and you get a lot of spare time as well, didn't you? Like a lot of, especially away games and stuff.
Yeah, you get a lot of it, and some lads can handle spare time really well, and others it's quite dangerous giving them free time. But that's what we did.
Oh my god! So, yeah, just brilliant times. And so we got promoted, and then that was the season. The season after you was unbelievable. We nearly went back to back. I remember we spoke before we went on camera. We said don't really want to talk about the games because that's we all saw that, but the double over Crystal Palace that season. Obviously, Neil Harris got ill, and you forged quite a formidable strike partnership with Steve Claridge. What was that mad bastard like? I've heard some good stories about him as well.
Well, let me actually, just to jump back, I remember the last couple of weeks, because I only remember this because I heard yours chat with Eiffel, and he was talking about his hat-trick at Cambridge and how that was like a career-defining moment for him. Yeah. My memory at the Cambridge game is very different. I on the Sunday beforehand, so it's obviously a really personal story here. But Sunday beforehand, a girl I knew and I'd been hanging out with for a while, her mates and my mates, she knocked on the door, and she comes in. And she goes, "Do you know why I'm here?" I said, "No, is everything all right?" She goes, "I'm pregnant."
Oh. And
we weren't in a proper relationship. We'd been casual enough. And I was like, "Oh, really? Just come in. Do you want a cup of tea? We talk about it." She says, "No, my mate is outside." She only stayed about 10 minutes. And she goes, I said, "Well, we've got this game on Tuesday." So she was like, "Well, I come over tomorrow." I said, "No, we've got this game Tuesday. Come over on Wednesday." And the following night, then her friend rings, goes, "Listen, she's after been taken to hospital. There's lots going on. Can you come down?" And I was like, I actually can't leave the gaff. This is the night before training. I'm not sure I'd be able to do much in hospital anyway. And so within an hour, she's had a miscarriage. So my head was fucking fried with all this. And so then we played the game against Cambridge. And about 5 minutes before half time, I went over my ankle. I think I fell behind the goal onto the ground behind the goal. I can't remember specifically what happened. It was killing me. And I thought, right, at least I get to half time and see how and I took my sock off at half time, and my foot was massive and purple and I couldn't move. And I thought, that's my game over. But Dicey was also injured and he had to come off at half time. And my memory that night was this.
Shit.
Me and Dicey were sitting in the dressing room, just the two of us on our own. And he had an ice pack on whatever part of him was injured. I had a massive ice pack on my ankle. And don't know if you have any dealings with Dicey, he doesn't do silences. He just talk. And he was going on about the way the match was going, decisions by the referee, his injury, whatever it was. And I just waited for a moment for him to be quiet, and I just went, Dicey, girl called to my house Sunday morning, said she was pregnant. My mate rang Monday night saying she had a miscarriage. My ankle's fucking massive. My head's fucking all over the shop here. And on top of that, obviously, because Dicey was going on about the importance of the match, and I think we'd only 2 more games to get promoted or something.
Yeah.
I remember Dicey just goes, fuck me. He says, I'm not normally short for words, but you've got me there.
Just to rein him in, as dedicated as it probably was.
There was no reason
about the game. You just want to let him know that other matters are fucking sometimes more important.
This is what's in my head right now for sharing what's in each other's heads. So there was a game in the following week against Wrexham away where we secured promotion. I think by drawing 1-1, and then the
decent weekend against Oldham.
Against Oldham was whether or not we'd be champions or not, and then we smashed it. It was brilliant. But then it was over that summer then where Chopper got diagnosed with cancer.
Right.
Which was just fucking mad. It was weird for everyone because we'd all just gone to, I think it was to Tenerife. There was a post-season trip, and it was one of the best trips I've ever been on in my life, because at this stage we're the closest knit group of any squad I'd ever been in. So with all these different managers, all these different players coming and going, and this group is amazing to be around. And we've just won the league, so we're all in brilliant form. It was the best trip ever. And then I think within I don't know how many days of getting back, McGee rings me and tells me about Chopper. And I had this weird, so first of all, you're sitting there going, what does this mean? Chopper's going to die? Like, I knew nothing about cancer. If he doesn't, will he ever play football again? Will he ever have kids? We had all these questions. We didn't have a clue how to answer any of them. Remember, me and Birch and Dicey were asked to go to the press conference in the Den where Chopper was speaking to the media, and there was no football at the time because it was close season, it was the summer, so there was loads of media attention. So we went down to it, and we were doing all these interviews with media people afterwards going, what's your reaction and all this, and I was just coming out with this bullshit, if anyone can beat it, Chopper can beat it. No idea what I'm talking about, so I didn't know anything about medically what was going on. But what people would say to me was I found difficult at the time. People would say, Jesus, I heard about Bomber. A lot of fans call him Bomber. I heard about Bomber. And I said, yeah, it's difficult. And then within a minute, so many fans did this. Well, tell you what, it's an opportunity for you, son. You're going to play more games.
Ruthless.
I lost count of how many times people said that. Now, I think they were probably trying to be positive, or whatever.
Trying to make light of a bad, as good as you can in that situation.
Remember when I first started, it was like, hang on, fuck off, telling me to take the positives out of my mate, like someone who think the world of. Like, Chopper's one of the most popular lads in the squad.
Yeah,
who's got cancer. We don't know how it's going to go for him, and you're telling me I should be. Anyway, but I remember at the time going into that season, me and Claridge were the first two, and it kind of quickly became apparent if we stayed fit, we were always going to be the first two.
Yeah.
Because Chopper wasn't available. I don't even know who the backup strikers were. Moody probably got at this stage.
Moody's gone by that point.
Yeah, he'd gone at this point. So
after he got promoted,
yeah. It was one of the first spells where I kind of knew that if I stayed injury free, I was getting picked every week, and it was 100% the first time in my career where I thought I deserved to be picked every week.
And it shows you'd grown. I mean, going from when you said that day you was driving into the Den, or many days you did, thinking, I don't want to be here, to go through things you went through, close friends of yours, went through a lot there to build the character, and then to then not thrive off that, but from that become the main man.
But it was loads of things, like McGee's coaching, Ray Harford's coaching was phenomenal. So the quality and the ability of all the players around us, the bond that we all had, so all those things came together, and I got physically a lot stronger than I'd used to be, and I'd stayed injury free for most of pre-season, so I was in the best condition I could be starting the season. So, and we just won the championship. We just won we won promotion, so we were all feeling good about ourselves.
Like I've got, I don't know if you've got kids. I've got kids, and one of them's like 13 now. when he was free, he was so cute that, you say, I wish I could just freeze him and keep this forever.
Yeah.
That's how I feel about that. And probably you're the same sort of feeling. That team, if we could have just bottled that and just kept them 2 seasons just forever.
That couple of seasons, like the promotion season was brilliant. But then the season we started in the championship for the first time. Like there's a big jump between the size of some of the stadiums and size of some of the crowds from like the 3rd tier to the 2nd tier. Like you're going to Wolves.
Confident you can make the step up personally?
So we'd no idea. That was the thing. Like we'd no idea because I'd no experience of this division, or what it would be like. And us as a group, most of us was, like a lot of us, I think, had no experience of it. And then when we went up, we started getting some big results fairly. So we hammered Norwich in the first day of the season. And then we did Crystal Palace game in the first 3 or 4 games. And I remember that one was big because after the Norwich win, I think we'd lost 2 or 3 of the next games. And we were due to play Palace on the Saturday, but the open day was due to be the next day. And that's the day where all the fans and all the players mingle together openly around the Den.
Yeah.
And we were like going, we lose to Palace. on the back of losing the previous 3 games or whatever it was, the open day is going to be a very different experience than if we beat Palace. And then the Palace game was amazing. I just remember the whole side of the stadium was Millwall fans. Just remember the noise that we were making that day. We won the game. And I remember then it was the following day. It was in the stadium the following morning. McGee pulled me into his office. So in the opening day in the ground. And he said, I just remember he said, he started praising me about my performance the previous day. It was one of the better performances I'd given at that point. And he said, Sad, in the fucking 92nd minute or something, you sprinted about 70 yards back to win the ball. Like full throttle, no fatigue. You looked as if it was the first 5 minutes. He goes, are you taking something you shouldn't be? Remember he goes, and I just took that as a compliment. Like I wasn't taking anything that I shouldn't have been. And he said, and Clinton Morrison was at this point Crystal Palace's centre forward. I'm talking about the away game at Selhurst Park. It was because I put us 1-0 up. Clinton made it 1-1, and then Claridge got 2. I think that's how it went. Yeah. But McGee said to me, because Clinton had been called up to the senior Ireland squad at this point, and he said, "Listen, you're very different players, but if Clinton Morrison can get in the Ireland squad, that's where you need to be setting your sights." I remember going, well, "Geez, this like
he was a goal scorer.
This is great hearing this from someone like McGee, but it was, oh, Jesus, I think this could actually be."
You was honestly, I'm not just saying it because I'm blowing smoke up your ass. You was the complete player. He was a goal scorer. He was quick, but you was by this point was just a complete player.
Very different. So it was on the back of that was going, okay, right, this season could go quite well if that's what my manager's telling me in the first month.
Yeah,
it should be a realistic game. And then I think McCarthy had come to games a few times, but he always timed it at matches where I didn't play particularly well, or I didn't feel like I played well. But then I knew he was at the game on the, you call it Boxing Day. We played Palace, and I swear to God, if you could script the perfect game, that's the game in my head that I remember, because. So I had this little imaginary rivalry in my head with me and Clinton. Like I got 2 and he didn't get any. With the Palace Millwall rivalry, first of all, like we spanked them, and we were rivals also for similar positions in the league. They were going for a playoff position as well. So, and then I think even at the end, I think Dicey or Nethers were in Clinton's ear for the whole match, winding him up. And then I think at the end of the final whistle, he lost his shit with a couple of them. But I remember walking off the pitch, and the whole stadium was singing my name was being sung, and I remember looking up, and my sister, my family were all over because it's Christmas, and as I was walking about 10 yards from the tunnel, about to go out of view, I just looked up, and I just made eye contact with my sister, and she's kind of giving me one of these fucking hell kind of looks, like, how good is this going? And then I was like, yeah, it's fucking this, and then into the tunnel. And then into the dressing room. And then when you go into that dressing room on a good day and the door closes behind you, It was just an amazing place to be. Like, I'd love to come up with a fancy phrase, that makes people understand what it was like. But
you just
days like that where you do exactly what you said with your 3-year-old. He's got, I could freeze this now. This, I don't think there's anywhere else in the world that I could be. There was nothing else that you could have offered me at that moment. Which
if you could bottle that feeling and sell it, you'd be a rich man.
Yeah, and on the back of Mick being there, I got called up then for the next Irish friendly, which was against Russia in the middle of February. It was gone, and at the time, we were looking like we could make a run for the playoffs. And I'd just been called up to the Irish squad, who at this point had already qualified for the World Cup that was going to be played in Japan and South Korea in June.
In
2002, yeah. So it was that whole year up to that point was going just as well as the season can go. And all the sweeter because things had gone really, really poorly in seasons a few years earlier. I had the experience of all that as well, so going, okay, this is what I prefer.
You've mentioned injuries, a few injuries there. I think you mentioned the circumcision, which I don't really count as an injury. The thing in your pubic bone, then you broke your arm. I remember you retiring due to a persistent hip injury, or was it a culmination of injuries?
It was a hip injury. So
after as good as the season was, I'm not skating over the rest. You sort of seemed to play less and less after that season. Injuries again.
What actually happened was, so I played for the Irish team mid-February, and Mick McCarthy told McGee there was like 3 or 4 more friendlies between then and the date that he'd have to pick the final squad for the World Cup. And if everyone stayed fit, there was probably one spot that either me or Clinton might get, because all the others were established players, and if they were fit, they were going to go. And Mick told McGee that I'm going to be picked in every squad to give me every opportunity to try and prove that I could get that final spot. So like, okay, fucking this is amazing. But 3 weeks after the Irish game, we played away against Barnsley, and in the first 10 or 15 minutes, I went to shoot, and the defender, I actually don't even know who the defender was, I can't remember. He blocked, and we both kind of collided the ball at the same time. And it wasn't even a free kick, it wasn't a foul, it was nothing. But I got this shooting pain in my hip, like way worse than I'd had before. It wasn't a groin strain, wasn't a lower back or muscle, it was in my hip and it was killing me. But we were flying at the time, and I thought, maybe this is just one of those injuries that I could run off. So I played the rest of the game, and I got stiffer and sore the longer the game went on. And I was in bits by that night. Couldn't train the next day against on the Sunday morning. And we had a Tuesday night's game against Coventry or Derby or somebody like that. And I got a couple of injections beforehand. And I think after 12 minutes I came off. And I went to see a surgeon then that week, and he said, you need surgery. There's an injury here. This requires surgery. And I was like, okay, I appreciate that. But we're on course to get in the playoffs for the Premier League. Yeah. I've never had a run like this in my career. I'm going to be called up to the next few Irish squads, and it's a fucking World Cup in 3 months. Like, this surgery idea.
Couldn't have done it worse time of my life. Yeah.
Is there a plan B here at all? Is there anything that I could just hang on? So, well, we could go for like a kind of another plan where you really are selective with how much you train and play, and you just hope that you get by. And I said, well, I want to do that. And it didn't work. So I couldn't train properly. When I played, I couldn't last the game, or I wouldn't be available to even play. So I think by the mid-April, I'd accepted, okay, this plan isn't going to work. I have to accept defeat here and have the surgery. And at that point, Dion Dublin had been brought in because they knew I wasn't going to play. So I had the surgery, and it was actually waking up from the surgery. I don't know if you've ever had an operation. The doctor or somebody comes around with a clipboard afterwards to tell you how it's gone. And I was on my own, so I woken up and I was a bit groggy from all the medication. And the doctor goes, "How are you doing?" I was grand. And I said, "How did it go?" And he started giving me some medical answer, like that I didn't understand.
Gibberish, yeah.
And I said, no. When do you think I'll be back playing? And he said, best case 12 weeks. And I said, all right, great. I said, matter of interest, like, what's worst case? And he said, well, worst case is you won't play again.
Jesus.
And I was like, I was on my own in the hospital bed at this in the room, and
he just drops the bombshell. Like.
I said, what are the chances of that? And he goes, about 25%, I would say.
Is this from just a one-off first time you've ever done an injury?
Yeah. And I was like, okay, grand. And I said, okay, well, 25% is a high number, but 75% is a lot higher. So there's a 75% chance I get back. So I didn't even repeat that to the physios or the doctors, right?
Yeah, no, of course not.
And so that was like April. So I wasn't allowed to go and watch the first leg of the Birmingham playoff because I was only 4 days out of surgery. But I was allowed to attend the home leg. And that went the way it did. And then I was in every day all summer, trying to work with bollocks off to get fit. And I was fit enough to join in the last few days of pre-season, which meant I was fit enough to be on the bench. And do you remember we played Rotherham?
Lost 5-0, didn't we?
Yeah. Lost 5. It was a weird couple of days. It was like Darren a bonus.
Scored 4, then I think Darren Byfield got 4 goals.
I don't remember who scored, but I remember I came on in the second half, delighted with myself because I trained a week. Gutted that we lost 6-0, but even more gutted that I'd hurt my hip even more. So I got off the.
Were you done it again in the game?
Yeah, it was just like, fuck, it kind of feels bad. But that night, Niall Quinn rang me, and he said he had rung years earlier in the first week of the Billy Bonds reign when I got those 3 goals. He rang years earlier and said, listen, Peter Reid wants to sign you at Sunderland. What do you think? And I spoke to Peter Reid over the phone, and he at the time, years earlier, said, okay. I gave like really honest, naive answer to Peter Reid years ago. He said, how would you feel about coming up and playing for a club like Sunderland, massive club, loves football, huge stadium? And I was like, to be honest, I really like it at Millwall. I've just settled in. Like, I just gave the honest, stupid answer. So Peter Reid is obviously thinking this bloke's a fucking donut.
He's not.
And anyway,
he
put me on. He ended the phone call saying, "I don't listen. I'll get our chairman to talk to your chairman." And anyway, I went out on that Saturday, hurt my groin, and that's when I didn't play again for 11 months. The Niall Quinn rings again after the Rotherham game. Howard Wilkinson is now in charge of Sunderland, and he said, how would you feel about playing against Blackburn next week? Sunderland were opening the Premier League fixture, their season against Blackburn the following week. And I said, sounds great. But I'm after hurting my hip again. And I don't know if I'd like. So I went around to Jerry, the physio, and within a week or so, and said, Quinn's been on the phone, and he knew at this point because McGee had been told, and there had been some negotiations going on.
Was a few ever discussed? That was what I was going to ask you.
Well, yeah. So my agent was the same agent as Mark McGee's, who also was quite close with Theo. So everyone was in the loop. I was the least informed of all because I couldn't really ask McGee, or it's like I felt I couldn't appear too interested in leaving. I thought that's a disloyal, shitty thing to be. Whatever. So I didn't
them fell through, and you were still at the club.
Exactly. No, I didn't even. So basically, I went round to the physio's house and said to Jerry, I said, listen, Sunderland have been on the phone. And Jerry goes, yeah, no, they're talking 7 million. And I said, okay. And I had a rough idea of something around that. And I said, well, I pass a medical. And he says, son, you've fucking no chance. I was like, okay, right. And so I rang Quinn back and said, apparently I wouldn't I wouldn't pass a medical, so we can forget about it for the moment. They signed Torre Andre Flo for about 8 million at the end of that week. Yeah, that's what they did with the money instead. But I remember McGee called me into the office then that week, or I think I went up, and it was weird. I felt like I was kind of like apologetic for even entertaining the idea. even though the idea had been put to me and the club seemed to be fully on board with the idea of leaving.
Did you even think to an extent that you'd let the club down in earning a decent bit of money out of you after showing faith in you originally as a youngster? Did you feel that at all?
No, well,
I'm not saying you should have done, by the way. I just know I can. No, I think you're a very deep thinker. So I'm just thinking of every alternative.
Well, I was in the office with McGee, kind of going, wanting to. I said, listen, they rang me, and it all kind of happened quite quickly, and I don't want you to think I'm kind of jumping ship or I'm fucking off or whatever. And he goes, like, again, really naive. It's probably not.
Yeah.
Most people in this situation will be saying or focusing on, but he kind of just said, listen, take your time. I said, you just get yourself fit. You'll be leaving, and it could be to someone bigger and better than Sunderland. You just forget about all that. Just get yourself fit. So I kind of knew the stakes were fairly high, like it is for anyone when you're facing a career-threatening injury. Stakes are high, but I thought, well, if I get back from this, things could go really well here. So,
because there was a rumor as well. There was a rumor that Alex Ferguson was having you watched.
Bob Pearson told me that. He pulled me one day and said, before one of the games in that season, I was actually the Birmingham home game. I think was the end of January, and I think I had a groin strain and I didn't play. And I remember before the game, he just pulled me and says, "It's a shame you're not playing, son. Half of football is here tonight to watch you." And I didn't ask. It's like asking your missus who else fancies me. You can't do it. You just can't. So I had to appear breezy, like, oh, all right, yeah, no, I should be okay for Saturday.
The thing of speaking to you, that I don't think you'd thrive off that either. I think that'll be a distraction for you, worrying.
Yeah, no. So but then he said the Man United thing. He said, he says, you never guess who was on the phone. And he says, I won't tell you who it was, but it was Man United. So he wouldn't tell me the person. And again, I like
all roads lead to one person at United at that time.
Yeah, but like at the time, I was like, going, how do I ask follow-up questions here without appearing too interested in leaving his back? So I just went, that's sure. I don't know. I just fobbed it off. So I never actually told who it was or whether it was just one of these phone calls where they say, what's he like? Is he a fucking pisshead? Is he a good lad? Or whether it was actually something more concrete. But I didn't ask, so I didn't know any of the details. So it was kind of in this scenario where I thought, I didn't obviously want to retire because I thought my world will end if I have to retire. But if I get back fit and fully fit, things could go really well career-wise.
The incentive there to get fit. You don't really need an incentive as a professional footballer. Those added incentives there are just crazy, aren't they?
Exactly. So it's kind of on the good days where things are going well, you go, okay, that's your motivation. Brilliant. But on the bad days when they weren't going well, you focus on that's the thing that you're going to miss out on. So it was like fucking hell, like being injured, because the nature of my injury was really inconsistent. Like when I broke my arm, it's 12 weeks and they can almost tell you every week what the progress is going to be.
Yeah.
You'll be able to do this and then this and that. And that's exactly what happens. With this, it was really unpredictable. So I tried a couple of more comeback attempts. I think by the time we played Portsmouth at home, the following March or April, I remember I got to about a week of training and McGee wanted to start me in the match. And Jerry was like, you can't start him in a match. He hasn't played in months and he's facing a career-ending injury. Rushing him here is not the thing to do.
Yeah.
This is the Portsmouth team that Harry Redknapp was managing and Merson was playing and maybe Sheringham was playing and Sherwood was playing, and they were brilliant. They beat us 5-0 anyway, but I come on as the second half sub that day. And I remember one of the lovely things about making a million comebacks when you're being written off as much as I was, is every time you make a comeback, people think you've beaten it. So I had about 6 comeback matches where every time I went on the pitch, the whole stadium would be a standing ovation going, okay, he's beaten it. He's back. This is it. Problems are behind.
That just shows us how far you've come at the club since what you're saying.
Very different from the early days. But I kept getting, survived the Portsmouth game, played against Wimbledon the next week. Didn't last.
Do you think that's poor from Mark McGee? As good as you said he is, trying to rush him back there for his own needs, or was you want him to play?
You always face that. Like when you're injured, you'll face people having a go at you saying you're not getting back quick enough, you're too soft, you should be playing, or will people be trying to rush you, and you've got to somehow just manage that. Because the physios might be holding you back, but the manager might be desperate. There's always
factors. There's always part and parcel.
Yeah, everyone's looking after their little patch. So they played a couple of games, setback, bad as ever. And then I went into the summer of 2003, or the end of 2002, back in the surgeons, and he says, "It's okay. You've kind of got to." And at this point, Mark McGee is with me and Theo. Now, managers rarely come to medical appointments. Chairmen never do. But McGee and Theo came with me back in his office, and he said, "You either retire or you have another operation. But I have to warn you, if you have this other operation, you may at most get a few years out of your career till your late 20s. You definitely won't be able to do a full pre-season, and you'll never be able to do a crammed fixture list like over Easter or Christmas. And you're going to be knackered long term. You'll need a new hip by 40, and you'll be in chronic long-term pain. When you're 23, like, you don't give a shit about what you're going to feel like when you're 40. So straight away I went, I'm having that. So I had the operation, but every deadline, every target the surgeon said that I should make, I missed. So if you should be running by then, I was nowhere near it. Should be kicking a ball, I was nowhere near it. So it was this gradual realization over the next 12 months that I've no chance here. And the more it was painful, the more I'd bullshit about it being painful, because by this time word had spread that if I don't come back from this, I'm not coming back at all. So I would go through the motions and tell everyone how you do. I said, "Oh, all right, yeah, I should be back running by." So to everyone else, I just said the positives. I would be back by a certain time, but in my head, it was just slowly fucking dying on the inside.
I'm devastated. I only got choked up there. That's fucking terrible.
Well, it was like, I don't know if it's like, think of the thing you like doing more than anything in your life that you've dreamed of doing more than anything. And you get to forget all the bad days early on, but you get to a point where all the boxes in your life are ticked. Everything about how you want your life to go is going that way. And then this thing happens. And then it was just slow, gradual.
It's not just the football. Like you say, the things you love doing. As much as you love what you was doing, it was actually your job. It was your interaction with all your friends.
Well, my mates are my mate. Like, if I'm not a footballer, I wouldn't have met Robbie Ryan or Tony Warner or Chopper. I wouldn't have moved to London. I wouldn't be living in the house I was in. I wouldn't have had the social life everything was reliant on me being a footballer. But I got to that summer. A couple of more comeback attempts failed. And so I was in training every day.
Still under contract at this point?
Under contract. My contract was going to run until the summer of 2004. And I realised in the middle of August 2003, that I needed to retire. I was in my back garden. I was living in a house at this time. I'd moved out of the house of sin. So we did a different house, and they did a swimming pool in the backyard. And me and Joe Dolan and a couple of other mates, we were just in the pool, just lobbing a ball to each other. Middle of the afternoon, like no drinking, no party. No, it was just on a sunny day sitting in the pool. And I went to jump, and I completely fucked my hip again. Like a really most basic movement possible.
Yeah. And
then I was going, and I knew I was on my last legs anyway at that point. I thought one more setback and I'm done. But I was like, I didn't want my last setback to be in my backyard with my mates.
Yeah, you need someone to be giving it your all in training or
yeah. So I went into training anyway and declared myself fit. Told the physio, who he knew, because the phrase that the surgeon said was, he said, "We're in pain management phase here. You're always going to be in pain. It's just how we manage it." So I knew that the idea of waiting until I was pain-free was just a waste of time. So I could go into Jerry and say, "It's sore, but it's a manageable amount of soreness. I want to go training with the first team." So I limped my way through training for a few days, hid as best I could, came on as a second half sub against Crewe. Same again, standing ovation. Everyone's like, but before the Crewe game, I remember being in the medical office with Jerry and McGee. This ridiculous conversation where I was going, if I play again, will this risk my career-ending insurance? Because I keep getting letters from the insurers saying that if I play again, they'll take it that I've recovered from the first injury and blah, blah. I couldn't really understand it. So
it's something you've got to consider, obviously, especially when he's
asking these questions, but I knew in my head that I'm on however long this comeback lasts, then I'm retiring. But no one else knew this. And so played a second half sub on the Saturday, and it was away against Stoke the following Tuesday, 3 nights later. And I remember going up on the bus and my hip was killing me. Like, I was on regular painkillers all the time and double dosing and painkillers, and I would get an injection before the game. But the pre-match warm-up at Stoke, we're all on the pitch. All the players are together as a group running up and down, and then I was like 20 yards away on my own on the ground just doing hip stretches. I couldn't even do the warm-up. And then in the second half, I was sent on. Played the last half hour, and at that point I knew, I'm not going to be in another pitch again. So I knew this is my last one because I was so bad. I knew I won't be able to join in training session again, let alone blag my way to the weekend, to the next game. And I remember being on the pitch. We drew 0-0, but I was on the pitch, and there was an injury, or there was a couple of delays, as there is in all matches. And I remember just standing there, just kind of looking around, not really knowing what I was going to. Am I meant to savour the view? Am I meant to feel fucking sorry for myself? Am I? I don't know what the right thing to. Anyway, so nobody knew what was going on in my head. They obviously knew I was struggling because I was struggling.
Yeah.
And I remember sitting in the dressing room afterwards, and I think Andy Roberts was sitting next to me, and I was like in my own world. I was sitting there in the dressing room saying nothing, and there was loads of high-fiving and back-slapping going on in the dressing room because we got a good point away at Stoke. And I was sitting there just in my own little world, and Andy just goes, cheer up, like, you did well, you came on, you did a good job. Gave me some football answer.
Yeah, your head was so far off football at that point, mate. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, it's a good point. Like that's the point that I gave some shit like that. And then the following Wednesday, without telling anyone, I lived with my missus at the time, Hixie, who I still lived with. I had an agent at the time. All my family, not one person knew that I was going in that morning to retire. Because I didn't want to have conversations about it. I didn't want people to tell me they felt sorry for me. I didn't want people to try and talk me out of it. I knew, like, my body was fucked. I could, like, bending over, rinsing my mouth after brushing my teeth. This was that level of.
These are activities that were problems. So you can forget about trying to be a footballer. So I went in and knocked in the office next to the physio room and said to Jerry, "Have you got a minute?" I called the doctor in as well. And we were there for an hour. And they were brilliant, the two of them. They just let me talk. And they kept asking me questions and said, "Listen, if you want to go again, we'll try again." And I just called out. Well, the surgeon
said, it's not just your body there, it's your mind as well, mentally. It must be
gone. I was gone. I was just gone. And I was like, every target, so they would have been aware of all the medical stuff. It's like every target the surgeon has given me, I've missed by months. You know what he said before the second surgery. You know what he said before the first surgery. And now you know what it feels like being my body like this. And then they waited patiently for me to be the one to say it. They were brilliant. And at the end, I just went, yeah, fuck it. I just need to stop wasting everyone's time and just call it a day. And at this point, I could feel myself. I was starting to cry. And which is fine, crying is fine, but it's a problem if you have to walk out of the room through a physio room which is packed full of footballers.
Yeah.
And I was going, they're probably all scratching their head.
Especially in them times as well. You know,
yeah, it was probably scratching their head.
But in the 90s, like that sort of early 90s, you're going to get shit for that. Or what's up with him, sort of thing.
Well, but it was like, they're probably all sitting there going, why is why is the physio and the doctor been in there for an hour? They're probably waiting for treatment themselves.
Of course.
Anyway, so I came out of the office, just didn't make eye contact with anyone, just went straight into my car and went home because Jerry had said, listen, we're going to have to tell McGee. And I was like, oh, fuck. I was like, how am I going to tell McGee? And I was like, do you mind if you do it? Because at this point, like Ray Harford had died a month earlier. We'd been at Ray's funeral. And Ray Harford and Mark McGee in my life at that time were like gods.
Yeah.
I was like, how am I going to go into McGee? So anyway, Jerry said he'd tell him. I said, right, I'm going to drive home. I'll come back in a couple of hours after training when he's ready to talk to me. And in the meantime, I went down to the park and just wrote the same text to everyone I knew, telling them what happened. But the last line was like, don't ring me, I can't be arsed talking about it. I'll speak to you whenever. So my family, my parents, my mates, everyone in Dublin, all managers, whoever I thought would want this text, got this text. And everyone was told, don't ring me. One of my mates thought it was a wind-up, thought that someone else had got my phone. But his reply was, best news I've heard all day, you were fucking died anyway. So, but every response was lovely, was supportive and all that. And then so I went home and I say to my missus and to my mate, going, I just retired there. And it was just weird. It was like people reacted as if someone died. I reacted like the world was over. That I would have no life ever again. That I'd never.
Yeah, I mean,
it was like everything.
Must have been tough, but I don't want to rub it in even further. But that where you'd come from and you got to, and you was like our main man with even bigger clubs bidding. It's never a good time for that to happen. And I said, I don't want to rub it in, but
I know,
it's the absolute worst time for it to happen. When you're usually people get injured, they fall out of football, they drop down the leagues. It happened for you at a point in your career when you was just about to go bang.
Yeah, and it was, which made it even more difficult.
Yeah, I bet.
Because in addition to not being able to do the one thing I always wanted to do, I was left wondering, what if I'd have stayed playing? Yeah. Which is an unanswerable question. Maybe I would have returned and been nowhere near as good and would have gone down a few levels. Maybe I wouldn't have been good enough to get back into the Millwall team. So, but you don't know. So it was all these what ifs, and I tormented myself. And then the lads got to the cup final within a few months. And on the one hand, I was going, this is amazing. I could see my best mates like playing. But even in a few months, I started to withdraw. I was like,
didn't want to be nothing against them.
You're in the squad or you're not.
Yeah.
You're a Millwall player or you're not. You can't kind of be a Millwall player, or you sort of. You either are or you're not. And I'm now not. Yeah. So I didn't want to hang around with footballers because footballers focus on football stuff. They fucking complain about whether they're going to be in the team or not, about the bonuses, or whether they're going to get promoted, whether they'll get relegated, whether the manager is doing any good. And I didn't want to hear any of that. So, but most of my mates were footballers at this point, so I didn't really want to hang around with any of my mates. So it was just shitty. It was weird, and I got loads of lovely. Like, I still have a box in the next room of printouts of the emails that I got from fans that were sent to the club. All these like lovely, brilliant messages. I couldn't read anything.
Loved you, really?
It took me fucking 7 years to realise it. But like, it was weird because for a while I had I just kept getting sympathy everywhere I went, which used to drive me mad. Everywhere I went, because it's not like I'm sure you've gone through shit and you can decide who you tell, but the shit I went through was public, so everyone knew about it. So anyone who met me, if it was the first time they met me since it happened, they would feel obliged to give me some speech.
Topic discussion for them.
Yeah, it's like
that's all they're in to have a conversation with you.
Yeah, but it's like I'm not. It's what I would say to me if I met me back then.
Yeah, yeah.
But I thought for the 100th, 200th, 300th time, I'm hearing the same speech about what I could have been, or they feel sorry for me, or all this kind of stuff. And at the time I thought, this is going to be how it's going to be forever. Yeah. This shit. So it was really difficult, and then just kind of had to adjust to being outside the bubble. But I didn't really think there was any place for me anywhere else, because I had no trade, had no qualifications, had no interest in anything else, had no experience in doing anything else. I was 24 going, I'm fucking unemployable.
Well, mate, you can't say you didn't fucking try your absolute best.
Yeah.
It's honestly, I knew what had happened, but I didn't know. And speaking fully and speaking to you now, honestly, it's affected. I'm devastated for you. Honestly, genuinely, it's affected me.
But it was hard for years. And I kind of, I knew it would be this way. There'd be days where I'd be really grateful for the memories I have. And I thought, I knew there'd be days where I'd be gutted for the days that I didn't get to have. And at the start, it was mainly all the second part. It was all I did. I just focused on, poor me, can't believe this happened to me, blah, blah, blah. And now, it's taken me 15, 20 years, whatever it is, all I think of now is just memories. Honestly, it's just
it's good.
Coming in and out of the tunnel at Millwall, being in the dressing room at Millwall, in the stadium, being on the pitch, some of the wins, some of the defeats, some of the nights out, the memories. I'm 41 now. I'm just really grateful. I can sit here now.
You get people like me who are fans. I would have given anything to play one game for Millwall. Yeah. You know what I mean? So it's a shame because everyone has regrets, but you give it your everything. You've got nothing to regret. It was out of your hands, wasn't it? With the injuries, you know what I mean?
But that was the culture at the time. Everyone at that club gave everything, and you kind of had to do that if you knew if you wanted to survive. Loads of lads came and went from the club who didn't give everything, and that's why they didn't last. But the squad that we had under McGee, particularly, and Rhino initially, those lads were it was a fucking pleasure playing with these lads and hanging out with them, and everyone just made everyone around them better, either their personality or how they play football or just the way we were with each other. It was just brilliant. So I'm sitting here now going, I'm delighted to have these memories to chat about.
If you could choose one memory from your time at Millwall, a good memory, one that stood out for you.
Chopper's goal against Watford. I remember the game. Vialli was the manager of Watford. They were due to play Arsenal the following week in the FA Cup. And he did an interview where he said playing us compared to playing Arsenal next week was like driving a Ford Mondeo compared to a Jaguar.
Prick.
And we were going, you fucking prick.
You don't need a team talk then, do you?
Yeah, it was I don't know. I can't remember how that information got to us, but we all found out about it. But we were flying anyway. And I remember Ramon Vega was their centre half. He was on stupid amount of money. Apparently he was on 18, 20 grand, which at the time was huge. Yeah. We were all on buttons by comparison. He was shit, and he got sent off before the end. And we were winning the game. Was it 3-0 or 3-1? Chopper comes on. And if you could break down this moment for a number of reasons as to why it was my standout memory. First of all, the goal was a belter. It was a brilliant goal. Second of all, just the occasion. It was New Year's Day, and we were in the promotion hunt, and we'd just beaten a massive club like Watford. Also, massive fuck you to Vialli. But even the area of the pitch that it happened in front of the away end.
Yeah, it's perfect.
Who had a big screen which replayed the goal in the match. So when he scored the goal, we didn't prepare this. Warner, everyone, we all ran to Chopper. Birch, I think, said, pick him up. So we just picked him up. He was up on everyone's shoulder. And we were staring at the fans. And as we were looking at the fans, the goal was being replayed on the screen. And then when the goal went in, we all did another celebration. And I remember being on the bus on the way home. After every match, you always ring family or friends or your missus or whoever. I remember speaking to my mum. So this is New Year's Day 2002. And I said to her, if I never play football again, this is the day that I remember more than anyone else. And I tried to get across to her why the moment was special, but I don't think you can until you're in it. And then 10 weeks later, I got the injury, which I never recovered from. And for years, that was the photo of that celebration was the only football photo that was in my house. You could walk into my house now, you'd never know I played football at all. But like, honestly, going back to the day we found out Chopper was sick. And then the few weeks of going, how is this going to end? And so there's that personal thing of him coming back. And then just the team thing of it being a game we needed to win. And it was just this camaraderie thing that we all had. And it was that moment, it was all wrapped up in a fucking box in wrapping paper with a bow on top of it, captured in a photograph. So it's like, right, that's the photo that's going to come with me wherever I go.
Oh, mate, it's brilliant. For anyone who, on the back of this, would want to read your book is out.
Yeah.
I
was going to mention the book because I feel like in any of the interviews I've done, it just feels like a really insincere interview when it sounds like you're trying to flog a book. I'm not here to flog the book at all.
You didn't. No,
this is going to happen without the book.
I knew you had a book out. I saw someone post it on Twitter the other day, and I on the back of talking to you, we're definitely having a look at it because, mate, I'm like, again, like I said, Denzel's brilliant with the laughs. Paul Ifill give a really good insight. We've managed with McGee, but again today is next level again, mate. Like, unbelievable stories, but like just so many highs, so many lows. I'm glad we've done it, but at the same time, that'll take some like upsetting things away from this. Do you know what I mean? Like where I'm gutted for you, but from both sides of it, it's been emotional, shall we say?
But it's good. Like you said, the highs and lows, but that's what football is like.
Yeah, it is.
And the highs and the lows can happen seconds apart, and they're ridiculously in different worlds. And you just have to find a way of just fucking trying to just keep on tracks as you're going around. And I was lucky in that the fellas that I got to play with, like we have a WhatsApp group now, I don't know, 15 or 20 lads from that squad or mates from that squad. And I don't say a lot in it, but every message that comes in, 80% of them make you laugh. Like it's really fun.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. I mean, I said it to the other boys, and I said to even as far down the line as it is, that time that you all had as players, that we had as fans as well. Not in togetherness now to bring these together. A little bit of insight from the players. The fans are absolutely love them, but it wasn't just brilliant times for us. For a lot of you players, it was the best times in your careers as well.
It was the best time of my life, not just my career. Particularly the 18 months, the 2 years of getting promoted under McGee, and then the first year in the championship, playing with the Irish team, and all the non-football memories and the stuff we did off the field. For those 2 years, life was as good as life could ever be.
Long live Casa del Sads, eh?
Yeah.
Mate, honestly, it's been brilliant. Nice. It's been a pleasure to speak to you.
No bother.
Top man. Thanks, Sads. See you, mate.
Cheers, mate.